Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast brought to you by DraftKings. Here's what you do. You throw down $5 on these tournament games still remaining, and if that team wins, you get $200 in free plays. That simple, that easy. All right, joined by the big dog, Brody Dryden. I am Mike Luke. You might be saying, Mike, what's going on in the interior? Well, you know what? I decided that I was going to start remodeling my interior a little bit. I chose a bad day, being that it's raining. But you know what? It's a first world problem, and I'm here to – that's why we got the big dog here to explain some stuff for you. How you doing, Brody?
Doing great. Mike, you better be putting up some back DA wallpaper, cardinal red and navy blue all over the place. That's what I'm
And
expecting.
you know me. You know how I roll. I'm going to have a surprise for everybody out there. Brody's going to be getting an Instagram shot of that one for sure, no doubt.
There we go.
We got a lot to get to today. Obviously, we're talking with the voice of the women's basketball team, Brody Dryden. First and foremost, Brody, let's rehash the season a little bit. Then I want to talk kind of about you. And this is your first year. You were spectacular along the way. And I just want to kind of get your take on everything. But first and foremost, season comes to an end against North Carolina. And I was talking with PJ Brown a little bit last week. And I think people also need to understand with this basketball team, with this program, the level they're at, but it's also, you can't just replace somebody like an Adia McDonald. So yes, Arizona was in the top 10, the top 15, but at the end of the day, it's also something that's difficult to replace on 1 year notice.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And not to say, I think that one thing going to the end of this season is they got a pretty tough pull going against that UNLV team in the first game in the first round, as they were a 13 seed, and
right.
UNLV had a better record than the U of A going into that one as a 13 seed, where Arizona's the 4 seed, and of course the strength of schedule plays a large part in that with UNLV in the Mountain West and everything. But they were a solid team. Arizona only won by 5 points when normally you'd expect a little bit more than that. But yeah, that North Carolina game, it was tough, and you could definitely tell, the missing element was somebody that could score, kind of right. Like Adia McDonald, a good shooter. And if they had a guard that had that good outside shot that could consistently score threes and really, carry the team. That the team is so strong in so many other areas, and they've got a couple, shooters, like shooting specialists
right.
and stuff, but not necessarily shot creators like Adia McDonald was. And you could tell they lacked that in the North Carolina game. I mean, they kept the points relatively low, holding them to only 63 points, but then only scoring 45. There's your issue right there. And, you'd expect or want maybe Cate Reese or Lauren Ware, somebody down low to, be the big body inside and score more down there. We come to find out that Cate Reese could play, and she obviously did, still needing surgery on her shoulder. That's going to be happening this week, I believe. And she'll be focused on recovery before next season. But you could tell the team did lack some of that shot creation, and a player like Adia McDonald that obviously was so big in their tournament run last year.
All right, so looking ahead a little bit to next year. So you lose Sam Thomas, and that's not something that you can't just minimize, losing arguably the best defensive player in the country. So, and she was obviously the backbone of that team. But you look around, I mean, you've got Cate Reese coming back. You've got some of the core, and you've got the best recruiting class in school history coming in. Obviously everybody knows about Maya Najee, but this is a team that, while they could be young, playing a lot of young players next year, Brody, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. They're still going to be one of the most talented teams in one of the best conferences in the sport. And I think that, there's still going to be some challenges because it's going to be the first year without Sam Thomas. That was always somebody that could lock down the opposing team's wing or guard if they had one that needed to be defended. I mean, the one nice thing, Ben Duyani's coming back, Shayna Pellington and Cate Reese are all coming back. Ben Duyani, I think, is pretty. I don't know if it's fair to call her an underrated defender, but I'd say only underrated. People know she's a great defender, but only because she's been on the same team as Sam Thomas, who,
Right,
like you mentioned, is known to be one of the best defensive wings in the entire country. So I think Bendu still being around is going to be huge for the team defensively. And, bringing Cate Reese back, Lauren Ware is going to be entering her third year. Maddie Connor, Coach Barnes has talked about her development and just work ethic throughout the season. And not just that, but she's become somewhat of a younger leader on the team as well. So, some vocal leadership from her and just being around now for her third season, that's going to be a lot. So you mix that experience with a lot of eager, incredibly talented freshmen coming in, the most talented freshman class that the school's seen. We should be ready for a fun year.
All right. So Brody, Brody, how old are you right now?
23.
All right. So I'm going to give a little bit of a background story right here. A guy that I do my pre and post game shows with, a guy named John Schuster. He was working at the radio. This is back about 20 something years ago, more than that maybe. And a guy by the name who was working at the U of A at the time, was a radio guy, came in there by the name of Ryan Radke. And Schuster told me, then he told me this probably 7-8 years ago. He said, I knew that there was something a little bit different about that guy, and you knew that he was going to go on and he was going to do some stuff. Ryan Radke now is the voice of the NFL on Westwood One, amongst other things. When the big dog Brody Dryden came in, I was still working at the radio, and you could just tell, well, gosh, what were you, 21 at the time?
Either 20 or 21, yeah.
I
might have been 20 when I started.
Right. The way that Brody carried himself, the way that he interacted was something of somebody about 20 years older than him. So the fact that he's in the position doing what he does right now is something that I'm not in the least bit surprised about. And it's incredibly rare. You don't see somebody that is able to handle the reins on a big time program the way Brody did this past season and did it flawlessly. My question, Big Dog, is going into the season, and let's take it through. What were your concerns? What were your expectations going into the season covering this women's basketball team?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your words, Mike. It really means a lot. And I just feel so incredibly lucky to, have the gig that I do covering the women's basketball game, women's basketball team. And I truthfully felt the same 3 years ago when I was 20 years old and got hired at the radio station. And I was able to work with you and Kevin and everyone back there going into work every day. It was just such a great experience. And I seriously think about it at least every day. And
my guy, that means a lot.
Yeah, it was such a valuable experience. It formed so much. And, that was apart from camp student radio at the U of A that I kind of used that experience to, get to the radio station when we worked together there. I mean, that's what made me fall in love with broadcasting. And it really helped me learn so much. And I just really enjoyed that. I think about it all the time and I miss it a lot too. So I appreciate those words, Mike. I did really love it. But yeah, in terms of going into this year for covering the women's basketball team, I was obviously nervous because anytime I had done or I'd covered U of A sports before, it was definitely from a more separate angle. Honestly, right. Just even at the radio station or at camp student radio, I'd covered the women's basketball team for camp and had commentated games and everything. But it's kind of like you show up at the stadium, you sit up in the stands over in the corner,
right,
and
right.
And then you leave at the end of the day. But going into this one, I was nervous, hosting the coaches show with Adia Barnes and traveling with the team and going to shoot arounds, going to all these different things, and actually being involved with the program. It was certainly a nerve-wracking experience, because it was like, oh man, what if they don't like me? What if I and not to mention that there's such a bigger audience. People are tuning into these
Right.
games, not to discredit our student radio broadcast, but you kind of
It's a different animal for sure.
Yeah, it's certainly a different animal, and it's like, hopefully my parents are listening, or a friend or two. But yeah, people, the community is tuned in on the radio and listening, and that's what they're relying on to tune into the games a lot of the time. So I mean, it was just such an honor going in. I was most definitely nervous. I remember the first exhibition game, I was just literally kind of, when you get so nervous, you feel like kind of cold, and
Yeah,
it feels like
exactly.
there's like, yeah, almost like shaky or something. I couldn't believe it. And it was what was it, against Eastern New Mexico?
I was going to say, wasn't it like one of the directional Mexico schools, or New
Yeah,
Mexico schools? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was Eastern New Mexico. And the first half of the game, I just had that nervous, cold feeling. And luckily, I don't think that game was on a ton of people's radar. It was an exhibition game for Arizona, and people were paying attention and whatnot. But maybe they were more looking forward to the first game of the season. So we had a couple exhibition games. The players got warmed up, they got ready, and so did I. So then by the time that first game of the season rolled around, I was a lot more ready to go. But I came in with experience, working at the radio station, doing student radio, covering U of A softball the year prior, working with the Tucson Saguaros, doing a lot of baseball play-by-play as well. I came in with some experience, but I gained more experience, broadcasting, living, traveling, and just learning so much throughout this season than I think I thought I ever would. So it was a great time.
What was the grind? What was the grind like? Because, when you're covering a team like that, I mean, you're not covering, a Division III team right here. You're covering a top, 15 basketball program. You've got a coach's show responsibilities. You've got, were you prepared for the grind? Was it something that you adapted to? What was that like?
Oh, well, sort of. I mean, Mike, with my dad, watching him and seeing how he prepared before games, and
you had the best mentor possible. That's for sure.
Exactly. I sort of knew what I was getting into because of that, being around him, knowing how to prepare, getting a lot of good advice, and kind of knowing what I was in for. But it's always going to be a little bit different. And yeah, that is one thing where I thought about there's 2 games a week normally. Obviously it sort of changes in the non-conference schedule if there's an extra game, or the schedule's weird, but 2 games a week. So it's like, oh yeah, you kind of show up for a couple hours for the games and you're good to go. No, it's like you have to use the entire week to kind of prepare. It's a constant news cycle of, especially with this team, what a high caliber team they were, and in the spotlight, getting awards, news was coming out. It was great to have PJ Brown, Kim Doss, Troy Hutchison, all these local media covering the team. You, Mike, always having me on and PJ on and stuff, and trying to keep up with the constant news cycle, which I think we're really lucky to have a constant news cycle for our women's basketball program, because not all schools, not all programs are lucky to have coverage like that. So I tried to take advantage, do my research, do my homework, and yeah, like you said, coaches shows on Tuesday nights, so you had to prepare for that. It was an hour long, but trying to prepare an hour of discussion, kind of using all the different news that came out and stuff. That was one of my biggest challenges, because I knew the play-by-play, or I'd done play-by-play. That's what I signed up to do. That's kind of the big highlight. But the coach's show was definitely a daunting task for me, because I'm I love being on the talk shows with you, Mike, but it's just kind of a different animal.
It's different entirely, my man.
Yeah. So that was definitely a challenge, but I loved it too. I learned to love and embrace the challenges and have fun with it, because that's what really the goal is. No, you want to have fun. You want the listeners to have fun, and I hope we accomplish that goal too.
All right, big dog. Before we sign off right here, first of all, where can they find you on Twitter? You're keeping the Twitter handle, correct?
Yeah. As far as right now, I'm keeping it Coyote Brody. So shoot me a follow, everybody.
Okay, but now Brody's not going anywhere, Brody. You're still, so now you're going to be, you're transitioning over to the, a different, well, I was going to say to a different field. Well, they don't play on the basketball field, but what are you going to be doing now?
Yep, I'm going to be doing Arizona softball. I already started this past weekend, kind of a quick turnaround there from basketball, but Arizona softball, we're going to be broadcasting all the home games. No away games, unfortunately, this season for softball, but we're doing all the home games until the end of the season, and then hopefully postseason as well. So next game is going to be on Friday at 5 o'clock Arizona time. Arizona's taking on Washington at home, so we'll be on the air 1400 KTUC online as well. So make sure to tune in.
All right, my man. We're going to have you on throughout the season. Obviously, you keep doing what you're doing. You're certainly on the right path, and shoot me that text.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Mike.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. Brody Dryden, voice of the Arizona women's basketball team right there and of the softball team. All right. Now we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit of basketball now. We're going to talk a little bit of football here in just a second. But 1400 the Tucker. You know how we roll here, Alfred. Thanks for tuning in, my man. All right. One thing I do want to tell you about, though, is the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. All right. Throw down $5 on these remaining NCAA tournament games, and if you win, you get $200 in free plays. Now, 21 and up, Arizona only. Got a gambling issue, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. They'll get you taken care of. I like Duke, unfortunately, to win it. But you know what? I'm not very good at this kind of stuff. So go ahead and take that with a grain of salt. But I'm, DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. That's where you want to be. All right. So Arizona spring football is going on right now. We're going to be having one of the the color commentator for the team, Lamont Lovett, on Thursday. Very excited to hear what Lamont has to say. One of the really good dudes in the industry. But a couple things, couple observations just from being at a couple practices. Obviously, I was out of town for quite a bit. But the Noah Fafita at the quarterback position, I think a lot of people know who he is, but they're also questioning, all right, so what is the exact deal? What is he tall enough? Can he play? Just through watching a couple practices and talking with some people that have been there more than I have that can really elaborate on it, they've been impressed by what the signal caller out of Servite High School has been able to do. He's been able to command the offense. He's been able to make plays. And again, it'd be a massive upset if Jaden DeLaura wasn't your starting quarterback this year. But but Noah Fafita is going to be knocking right on that door right there. He is a guy that is probably the future quarterback at that position. Obviously, Braden Dorman will have something to say. But between DeLaura, Jordan McLeod, Noah Fafita, I think the Arizona quarterback situation is in fairly decent hands, certainly better hands than it was last year. You look around at some of the other positions, and I'm going to try to get Michael Lev on here to talk about it. Does great work at the Daily Star. He's a big Jonah Coleman fan, running back, obviously out of California as well. But the thing that you just really notice about this squad is how big they are on the outside. At the wide receiver position, they are huge. Now, everybody knows about Tatora McMillan, but we've talked about it. A.J. Jones is 6'4", 6'5". Jacob Cowing isn't a big guy, but he absolutely dominated practice the other day. Kevin Green, they have a huge table of guys right there that can all play and I think, honestly, are going to be problems for the rest of the conference. It's going to take a little bit of time, but if you could make it out to a football practice, Great weather right now. Obviously, today it's raining, but you don't have to worry about it because tomorrow there will be another practice. So again, I'd highly recommend going out there and seeing what they have to do out there. And I just wanted to flip over real quick. Wanted to flip over to the basketball side, and a lot of people are asking, what's going on with this team, for next year. If you were to ask me, and this is just my guess, not an insider, I just kind of call what I see. Some people talk to me from time to time, but I don't really have any inside info on this. But I would imagine that Ben Mathurin is gone, but I think Dalen Terry probably comes back, and Koloko's the wild card right there, because if Christian Koloko does come back, you're looking at a team all of a sudden that can have 2 first-round picks. And if you're looking at a lineup where, again, you're going to have to get some guys out of the portal, I totally get that. But if you're Arizona and you can go into next year with a lineup where you've got still your front court intact of and Andre, you demand. But if you could have your front court intact of Christian Koloko, Azuolas Tubelis, Dalen Terry, and you get a little bit more athletic at those 2 guard spots, and obviously you bring back Kerr, you bring back Pella, my bad Pella, all of a sudden you have something that you can really work with right there, because you're not going to find a lot of teams bringing back more. I think Tommy Lloyd knows that he's got to alter the complexion of the construction of the roster a little bit. I think that's certainly going to happen. And honestly, he was just named Coach of the Year. 100% deserved. There's no doubt that he should have gotten that award. And I'm just excited for Arizona basketball. I know a lot of people are bummed the way the season ends, but you got to remember, only one team wins it at the end of the day. Arizona basketball is in really, really good hands right now. You know what else is in really good hands, though, is the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Code word PHNX. All right. $5 in, you get $200 in free plays if you're a new customer and the team that you bet on wins. It's really that easy. It's that simple. I like Duke in this NCAA tournament matchup. You got to bet on one of these teams to win. And if that team wins, you get those $200 in free plays that you are able to do anything you want with at any point. It's fun stuff. And again, DraftKings Sportsbook app, it's the most respected sportsbook app. It's not going anywhere. And again, check it out. Also, check out Go PHNX. All kinds of good stuff going on right there. Great kind of merchandise. If you get a membership, you get all kinds of, some a free shirt, 50 cents for the first month. A lot of written stuff from all over the state. We got basically everything cornered right there. It's essentially a one-stop shop. But we'll be back with you tomorrow. Again, big guests coming on this week. Lamont Lovett, Thursday. Jason Shearer, he doesn't know that he's coming on Friday, but he is going to be coming on Friday. And we're going to keep this thing rolling all throughout the offseason. But again, big tip of the cap to the big dog, Brody Dryden. Big future ahead of him. I'm Mike Luke. Everybody, thanks for commenting. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.